So if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to go over the original article because you will be so mad. Every time I think about this, and when Jordan suggested that I do this as a story or as part of today's stream, I immediately my blood boiled because this piece is just so infuriating that anyone could, even anti-Bernie people, that anyone could do an article like this, write an opinion piece like this is beyond me. It makes no sense. On no planet is Bernie Sanders at all like Donald Trump. And that's the premise of this crazy, crazy article. So let's get into that before my head explodes. So this is in the Washington Post, which, by the way, is owned by Jeff Bezos. And Jeff Bezos, just to mention, is not super duper happy with Bernie because Bernie has been shining a light on the tax dodging of Amazon, the general corruptness of Amazon, the oligarchy-ness of Amazon. Yes, I just made up a word, but it shall stand. So, yeah, it's a paper owned by Jeff Bezos, and this particular article is written by Dana Milbank, who, by the way, his wife is currently working for the Hickenlooper campaign, and I hopefully have said that right, but honestly, he's not really a thing, so he's not going to win the presidency. So let's just say it's Hickenlooper. And also, as Jordan uncovered, and you can see that on his Twitter, Dana Milbank's wife has also done some polling for opposing people, opposing presidential candidates. And who do I mean by that? Again, Mr. Joe Biden. The connections here are crazy. So Dana Milbank's wife has previously done some polling for Joe Biden's foundation, and make of that what you will. So the title of this article is called "Bernie Sanders Has Emerged as the Donald Trump of the Left." Again, head is exploding. In politics, as in physics, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Hence, Senator Bernie Sanders' emergence as the Donald Trump of the left. Fundraising and polls show that many Democrats think the best answer to an angry old white guy with crazy hair, New York accent, and flair for demagoguery — what a lunatic this guy is well, another angry old white guy with crazy hair, New York accent, and flair for demagoguery. This guy, I can't handle him. It's not difficult to picture a scenario in which Bernie captures the Democratic presidential nomination with the same formula that worked for Trump with Republicans in 2016. I mean, already you can tell this piece is nutso. On paper, the independent from Vermont doesn't make sense. Democrats are a party of youth, and he's 77. They are majority female, and he's a man. They represent the emerging multicultural America, and he is white. Statistically, he is the worst option against Trump. And that's not true at all. That's lying with statistics. An NBC News poll this week found that there are more voters with concerns about Sanders, 58%, than there are for former Vice President Joe Biden, 48%, Senator Elizabeth Warren, 53%, and Senator Kamala Harris or former Representative Beto O'Rourke, 41% each. Yet, Sanders has both money and movement. His campaign on Tuesday announced a haul of $18.2 million in the first quarter from 525,000 individual contributors. The other major populist, early favorite Warren, has floundered in both money and popularity. And undeclared frontrunner Biden now looks vulnerable to accusations he inappropriately touched women, kicked off by a prominent Sanders 2016 backer who served on the board of the Sanders political group. Others have already tried this, saying that Lucy Flores, because she supported Bernie Sanders in 2016, must have a conflict of interest and must be doing this. By doing this, I mean coming forward about Biden inappropriately touching her in order to serve Bernie Sanders, which is not the case. She recently attended a Beto O'Rourke rally, and she has not announced who she supports for 2020. So this is just Dana Milbank trying to get yet another nudge in. Meanwhile, Sanders himself remains untouchable in a Trumpian way. Claims of mistreatment by male staffers from women who worked in his 2016 campaign? Yawn. His resistance to releasing his tax returns? Whatever. The idea that Democrats need a unifying figure to lure disaffected Trump voters in key states? Never mind. Sanders isn't Trump in the race-baiting, lender-cheating, fact-avoiding, porn actors-paying, Putin-loving sense, but their styles are similar. Shouting and unsmiling, anti-establishment and anti-media, absolutely convinced of their own correctness, attacking boogeymen, the 1%, and CEOs in Sanders' case, instead of immigrants and minorities. How on earth can you justify attacking the 1% and CEOs as being anywhere close to Trump's attacking of immigrants and minorities? This piece is just so completely ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. Like, what planet does Dana Milbank live on? It's crazy. Offering impractical promises with vague details, lacking nuance, and nostalgic for the past. Sanders supporters hope he'll fight Trump's fire with fire, refusing to be conciliatory the way Biden and O'Rourke are, or to be goaded by Trump the way Warren was into taking a DNA test. I'm just going to... Oh, here's a piece I'll read, because I don't want to spend the whole time reading just this. I spent Monday at a cattle call for 8 Democratic presidential candidates hosted by labor unions, the Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, and other progressive groups. Sanders was easily the least charismatic, which I do not believe. How can you look at Bernie and not see the charisma of that man? Hoisting his trousers by the waist, tugging at his socks, hunching over the lectern, sitting stiffly and awkwardly greeting questioners. But the reception among liberal activists, which had ranged from tepid, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, to enthusiastic, Warren, was for Sanders rapturous. "Bernie, Bernie, Bernie," they chanted, standing when he appeared and when he finished. In between, they applauded a routine full of Trumpian flourishes. So, Milbank says he channeled rage at the vulgarity of a grotesque and corrupt system, the absolute hypocrisy of Republicans, corporations that lie, and billionaires who buy elections. Of the wealthy, he said, many of them are bandits. And he said if Republicans don't have the guts to participate in a free and fair election, they should get the hell out of politics. Like Trump, he railed against companies moving jobs to China or Mexico. Like, okay, just because Trump is a nutcase and potentially has declining mental facilities doesn't mean that he's like 100% wrong all the time. Yes, it's not great that we're moving all of our jobs to China or Mexico. Yes, it's not great that there's fake news in the news media, kind of like this piece. So, his comparisons just don't make any sense. It's less hateful, perhaps, to blame billionaires than immigrants or certain globalists for America's troubles, but the scapegoating is similar. So is Sanders' socialist label, worn as defiantly as Trump wears the isolationist America first. By the way, this bugs me whenever people in the media do it. Sanders is a democratic socialist, which is not the same thing as a socialist, but they do it because the word socialist is scary. And they don't want people to know that Sanders' policies are actually what they want. When you remove the socialist label, the democratic socialist label, and you just state his policies, like Medicare for all, it's what people want. And the media and corporatists are scared of that. A similar crowd could likewise prevent Democrats from presenting a clear alternative to Sanders' tempting, if Trumpian, message that a nefarious elite is to blame for America's problems. Except for the fact that that's true. This guy, oh my goodness. Universal health care, higher education, and child care are within reach, Sanders said to Cheers. If only we stand up and tell this 1% that we will no longer tolerate their greed. In real life, it's not so simple. But in our new politics, maybe it is. This columnist's wife, Anna Greenberg, works for John Hickenlooper, a Democratic presidential candidate. Great job with one disclaimer, but you missed out on the part where the wife used to be a Biden pollster. As you probably could tell, that piece makes me really, really upset. I disagree with all of it, and I'm not alone in that. There are many people who have come out against this. And the next piece I'll show you, actually, they pulled one of Jordan's tweets about this piece too, so it's kind of cool. Let's go into this Mediaite piece so you can see other people's responses to that. You have my response, which is cuckoo freaking bananas and absolutely infuriating. So now let's go to see what other progressive people have to say. So this is in Mediaite. Washington Post Milbank ripped for column calling Bernie Trump of the left. A complete joke. And the a complete joke part in the title is from Jordan's tweet. So that's cool. The Washington Post was criticized today in response to columnist Dana Milbank's op-ed labeling presidential candidate Senator Bernie Sanders the Donald Trump of the left. He continued, fundraising and polls show that many Democrats think that the best answer to an angry old white guy with crazy hair, New York accent, and flair for demagoguery is, well, another angry old white guy with crazy hair, New York accent, and flair for demagoguery. First of all, no one should be making fun of Mr. Sanders' hair. It's beautiful, lovely, white hair as white as snow. When suggesting that Sanders and Trump share the ability to channel hate at a group of people, Milbank argued, it's less hateful, perhaps, to blame billionaires than immigrants or certain globalists for America's troubles, but the scapegoating is similar. Milbank, who notes at the end of the article that his wife works for Sanders' Democratic primary opponent John Hickenlooper, took to Twitter to blame criticisms of his piece on the vitriol and name-calling of the Bernie Bros. And that's Dana Milbank's tweet right here. In my column noting parallels in style, not substance, between Sanders and Trump, how can he say not substance when he's talking about demagoguery and hitting on the 1% and hitting on the corporatists? How could he say that he didn't try to bash Sanders on substance? That's ridiculous. So he says, I wrote, the support for Sanders shows that the angry, unbending politics of Trumpism are bigger than Trump. The vitriol and name-calling of the Bernie Bros replies sadly proves the point. And by the way, the Bernie Bros title, which is also infuriating, and which I'm glad that, in quote, Bernie Bros have adopted, is, it was created by Correct the Record. I mean, they had this whole idea of bashing Bernie Sanders supporters by calling them Bernie Bros, despite the fact of how many women are Bernie Sanders supporters. It's just very infuriating. While the piece received a wholehearted endorsement from Milbank's Washington Post colleague Jennifer Rubin, which, yeah, good job, an endorsement from Jennifer Rubin. I mean, great. It was generally mocked online. Check out a few of the media's reactions to the lazy column on Sanders and Trump's shared weird hair. So Cenk Uygur said, this article demonstrates every single thing wrong with mainstream media and why progressives can't stand them. Thank you, Milbank, for clinic and establishment cluelessness. And then Jordan's tweet right under that. The Washington Post is a complete joke. And that's the one that made it into this title. Andrew Perez says, if that's going to be your take, you should probably run this disclosure at the top. And he's talking about the Hickenlooper disclosure. Matthew Glacius says, Bernie Sanders' message can appeal to some of the same voters who, alienated by establishment political culture, rally to Trump's banner. And then an arrow, cool leftist take. Bernie Sanders' political style is the Democrats' version of Donald Trump. Arrow, bad neoliberal take. Glenn Greenwald said, in moronically but predictably equating Trump and Bernie Sanders, the Washington Post's Dana Milbank, whose wife is working for the Hickenlooper campaign, inadvertently reveals the real reason so much of the media and DC establishment hate Bernie. Will Menaker says Dana Milbank is correct. Bernie can win and will win the presidency. So Will there usually frames things as a joke. So he's saying, like, Dana Milbank's correct in this one thing. Trump won, Bernie can win. Tom Gara, Dana Milbank's Bernie is the Trump of the left thing reads like the captions to one of those expanding brain panel memes. Asawin Soupsang says, mostly unimpressed by Bernie Trump comparisons because they're so lazy. Both say things about trade and tap into widespread fury. Yeah, and Father Tiso and Oscar Romero were both foreigners affiliated with the Roman Catholic Church. There were some key differences between them, though. Sam Thielman says, can you imagine using your staff position at the best newspaper in the country to write a column about how Trump and Bernie are basically the same because they both have weird hair? Okay, and then we have Nina Turner, our beloved Nina Turner, saying, president of the pro-Sanders organization, Our Revolution, and David Sirota, Sanders' speechwriter, also slammed the op-ed on Twitter. Nina says, seriously, Washington Post? There is absolutely no comparison between Senator Bernie Sanders and President Trump. One pushes hope and vision, and the other stokes hate and division. It is obvious what you are doing, and it is not a good look. Get him, Nina. David Sirota says, Bernie. Billionaires should pay taxes, and we should guarantee health care as a human right. Trump. Kids should be ripped away from their parents at the border and thrown in cages. Milbank. These are the same. I mean, that really sums it up there, David Sirota. And then we have the Glenn Greenwald tweets, which I've already pointed out, but there's a second one where he says, also, Milbank's use of the word perhaps here is nothing short of revolting. And the part of the article he's talking about is, it's less hateful, perhaps, to blame billionaires than immigrants or certain globalists for America's troubles. So look at that. Look how that's phrased. It's less hateful, perhaps. You know, that emphasis on the perhaps. So he's saying maybe it's less hateful to blame billionaires than it is to blame immigrants. Ugh, what on earth? This piece is, for one thing, badly written. It's in one of the most popular newspapers in the country, and it's complete propaganda. That's all there is to it. It's really just nuts, as I've said over and over. Another tweet by Glenn. Perhaps the most irrational claim in Milbank's attack on Sanders is this paragraph, claiming Sanders runs on Trumpian rage, hatreds, and division. Two things have defined Sanders' political life: reaching out to everyone and refusing to run negative ads on his opponents. Ding, ding, ding. But Milbank said, Sanders supporters hope he'll fight Trump's fire with fire, refusing to be conciliatory the way Biden and O'Rourke are, or to be goaded by Trump the way Warren was into taking a DNA test. Maybe answering belligerence with belligerence will work. Trump-era predictions are worthless. Either way, the support for Sanders shows that the angry, unbending politics of Trumpism are bigger than Trump. So the highlighted spaces are what Glenn is paying attention to. It's so infuriating. Obviously, we can expect that this is not the end of the attacks on Bernie. That would be silly. There are going to be many more attacks on Bernie this campaign season. It's going to get really, really, really dirty, especially towards the end, just like it did last time. This time, we don't know who basically the two frontrunners of the primary will be, but it's pretty safe to assume that Bernie Sanders will be one of them. So we can expect more Dana Milbank hot takes. We can expect hot takes in the New York Times, the Washington Post, every big newspaper out there, every corporatist newspaper out there are going to keep attacking Bernie. And it might even be worse than this. As mad as this one made me, it could get worse. So I'm gonna keep an eye out on what people are saying and how ridiculous it is. This one in particular, though, so far was the most egregious I've seen. Just Just absolutely off his rocker, that Dana Milbank.
Hope you enjoyed that last video. Hop on over to statuscoup.com where you can sign up for our email list and become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month. Membership is how we grow. That's statuscoup.com/join. And remember, join our email list so we can grow the revolution with you.